Hello, everyone. Hi, and thank you so much, Nalini, for giving me the platform to share today. My focus is on speaking on systemic oppression in the healthcare system. When it comes to health disparities surrounding minority populations, we must examine the issue of cultural competency. Systemic oppression in the healthcare system stems from the ongoing tolerance of implicit bias, the apathetic attitude towards cross-cultural diversity and comprehension, and the miseducation of minority communities as a whole. With the progression of the coronavirus, racial and ethnic health disparities were brought to the forefront of discussion. We learned that Black, South Asian, and Latinx people were contracting the disease and dying at a higher rate than their white counterparts. I can personally attest to that as I lost 3 family members in a 6-week time span to the coronavirus. When America began preparing for quarantine, large chain supermarkets began selling out of necessary supplies, such as food, disinfectants, cleaning supplies, and equipment. When the aisles became barren, many white Americans decided to go into the dollar stores and the Dollar Generals and small scale supermarkets in poor Black communities and buy out those materials. Coupled with the spiking unemployment rates in the Black community, with Black employment rates at 16.7% compared with white unemployment rates of 14.2%, and Black workers being more likely to be in frontline essential jobs, Black families more often residing in environmentally toxic areas. This disproportionately contributed to the higher risk and increased contraction of the coronavirus. And when Indigenous community-led medical centers requested PPE to ready themselves for the pandemic, they in turn received body bags. The framework had started to be laid for the large-scale and unnecessary death of people of color. Weeks later, nurses in New York came out to discuss that the large number of Black patients in their ICU wards were being ignored as they suffered through multi-system organ failure and ultimately left to die in excruciating pain. American medicine has not advanced from its horrific origins, led by physicians such as James Marion Sims, of using Black enslaved women as test subjects for gruesome studies, which led to the disfigurement of their reproductive systems and even death. Anesthesia was refused to them due to the belief that Black women and Black people in a whole do not feel pain. This belief still holds true in modern day medicine, as provided in current medical journals, that Black people believe suffering and pain is inevitable, while brown people and other people of color believe that it is healing, it must be endured for their religious faith. These tolerated biases have led to the unnecessary and avoidable deaths of Black, brown, and Indigenous women. Black and Indigenous women experience higher pregnancy-related mortality rates, 40.8 and 29.7 respectively, than all other racial and ethnic populations. This was 3.2 and 2.3 times higher than the pregnancy-related mortality rates for white women, and the gap widened as the age groups increased. In July 2018, my best died in childbirth. She was only 25 years old. She was a motivated, hardworking young Black woman and an amazing mother to her 5 beautiful children, my godchildren. The doctor cut her umbilical cord too short, which led to her extreme maternal bleeding. When people heard her story, they wanted to comment on the fact that she was a young mother, had only finished high school, had pre-existing health conditions such as gestational hypertension and diabetes. They failed to further examine that though she did not have a higher education, that would not stop the mistreatment of Black women by these oppressive systems of power. The pregnancy-related mortality rates for Black women with at least a college degree was 5.2 times more than that of their white counterparts. A grim reminder that regardless of the class you occupy, your education level and financial status are protected from the dangers of racially charged implicit bias. For instance, Serena Williams went through and endured a life-threatening labor. And this is a woman with the financial resources and means She has global, not national, but global presence, and still, as a Black woman, had to experience this life-threatening, labor. My friend's story speaks to another issue within the health disparities amongst minority communities. A 25-year-old Black woman suffering from hypertension and diabetes. When you think of minorities and pre-existing conditions, you automatically associate hypertension, diabetes, heart attacks, strokes, and high cholesterol with people of color. We do not look further to see how systemic oppression has shaped these statistics and cultural assumptions. Disadvantaged neighborhoods, primarily occupied by Black and brown families, are surrounded by unhealthy food options, environmental dangers, have little to no access to healthier organic grocery stores. And these markets often do not partner with governmental assistance in terms of food programs. So SNAP, based out here in America, food stamps, such as that. And these systems of power have laid the groundwork to perpetuate poor health outcomes and lower quality of life for Black and brown people. Second problem comes in the form of blatant ignorance and apathy towards the understanding of diverse cultures. Doctors to take into consideration the cultural staples that are intrinsic amongst diverse communities. Food, contrasting health beliefs, Eastern medicine, African medicine, and other faiths. Practitioners, nutritionists, and coaches choose to ignore the necessary conversations about their patients' diets, the differences in mass food cultivation versus organic, locally sourced options, and integrated holistic ways to incorporate their traditional medical disciplines with Western medicine. It furthers the idea that doctors prioritize treatment over prevention, especially with people of color. These injustices have led to minority communities having distrust and disengagement with medical professionals and Western medicine in a whole. And to name a few, the Tuskegee experiment, illegal organ harvesting of Black and brown people, IQ testing would lead to positive eugenics, because a lot of people don't know that IQ tests began to push for positive eugenics and the wiping out of disabled people, Black people, and brown people, as well as the poor. And with that came the Ralph sisters. I definitely urge you guys to look up who they are, as well as Henrietta Lacks. But this must change. As minorities that were born or now reside in America, medical treatment is necessary for our well-being and our overall quality of life. It is our right and never-ending fight to get the medical treatment we deserve. We must champion for our quality of life. We must force doctors to notate their unwillingness to serve. We must connect with the doctors that look like us and understand our experiences. And lastly, we must be a continuous voice for those that have lost their lives in their pursuit of ethical and equitable medical treatment. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.